Hey guys, Gareth with Creative Connors here. Today, I want to talk to you about rotary limit switches and how to set them. We're going to look at that on a Spotline hoist, but honestly, this same process is used for any rotary limit switch. And as part of that conversation, I want to talk about why do we use them at all, when should we set them, and then of course, how do we actually do it? So let's get this hoist rigged up so we can start looking at them. I think it's fair to ask first, why do we need limit switches at all? Don't we have encoders on the motor and a fancy controller and all sorts of software that's supposed to put the load from the hoist exactly where you want it to go? Yeah, but sometimes that doesn't work. And you might think, the limit switch almost seems redundant. It is. That's actually part of the point. We need the redundancy when some of the other stuff doesn't work so well. Encoders, they get set by operators. Automation operators set the position. And encoders can fail. So when that happens, we need something else more primitive to make sure that we haven't created a dangerous situation on stage. So as a great example, here, like a dummy, I have unwound my hoist too far. This is all slack now, and it's just piled up on the floor. As an idiot, I'm gonna go ahead and re-zero the hoist and say this is 0, when 0 should really be off the floor. The hoist is on the ground, and I'm gonna go up and reset position to 0. Now let's see what happens if I try to lift the hoist up a bit and then run to that position. Go ahead and jog it up. So now the hoist is reporting that it's at about 100 inches, even though it's about half that. I load the cue, and I'm gonna go ahead and run it. Boom. Okay, clearly that's no good. If we misset our 0, then next time we run a cue, we could drop the load beyond where it's supposed to go. Can't have that. But there's actually an even simpler scenario where we really want the limit switches to help us out. And that's when we're running on manual controls. In manual mode, we're bypassing the encoder and the motion controller, so there's no way it can help us at all. So if I jog this down, I just crash into the floor. A limit switch is gonna help us with that. Okay, I hear you. You're saying, Gareth, we're converts. We want to set our limit switches. I'm so happy to hear it. But when? When should we open that box and when should we set them? Well, pretty much as soon as you possibly can. These are low-level sensors that don't rely on the motion controller or the computer, so you really want to set them early in the process. Once your hoist is rigged and everything looks set mechanically, you should get your limit switches set, because everything from that stage forward, you want to have that protection in place. Okay, so how do we set the limit switch? And which one is it? It's a black machine with a bunch of black boxes. Well, it's this little black box here. You do need a few tools, so gather them up when you're ready to go. Get yourself the longest Phillips screwdriver you can manage for removing the cover. Get a small flat blade driver for adjusting the switch itself. And then make sure you got a tape measure handy. All right, this is the limit switch cover. You got to remove it by unlocking the two screws that hold the case down. I've cheated a little bit. I've already loosened my inner screw, so I'm just gonna slide in the world's largest screwdriver here and loosen up the second screw. With the cover off, we can see that there is a cam stack and a series of micro switches, each of which get independently struck by a cam in the stack. At the bottom, we have reverse ultimate, and then we've got reverse initial, forward initial, and at the top, forward ultimate. Now, you can reasonably ask, why do we need 4 limit switches? Wouldn't 2 be enough? Don't we just need one down and one up? Again, it's all about redundancy. We want to make sure that if anything goes wrong and the reverse initial limit switch fails, that there's a second limit switch to catch the load and stop the hoist. And the initial and ultimates actually behave differently in the control circuit as well. If you hit an initial limit, no big deal. You can go the opposite direction. If you hit an ultimate limit, the controller shuts down until you come over and hit the ultimate limit override button. And that's there because if you've hit an ultimate limit, something has failed, and you've got to go check it out and see what's up. Okay, let's go ahead and set the reverse limit. So, as I run the hoist down to a position that I want to be the reverse limit, pay attention to which direction the cam stack is rotating. That's going to be important when we go to set the cam. So, running in reverse, hopefully you can tell that the cam stack is moving clockwise. Okay, I'm gonna hold this as our reverse initial limit position. And I'm gonna take a measurement just to try to keep myself honest. So to set the reverse limit, first thing I wanna do here is I want to loosen the locking screw. So I loosen the locking screw, that's important. You don't wanna start adjusting the cams with that lock in place because you'll damage the switch. And now I pick my green screw, because that's the color that is associated with the reverse initial. And I'm going to turn this clockwise in the same direction that the hoist was turning the switch as it was going down. And I turn it until I get a little click. I'm going to snug up that lock screw. Don't go nuts. They're plastic cams. Don't go crazy with that screw. And now we got to run the hoist back up so we can check and see how we did. Now this time I won't stop it, I'll let the limit switch stop it. Whoa! I wanted to be down here, and instead I stopped up here. That means that I'm hitting the switch too early. I've bumped that cam into the switch too aggressively, and I need to back it off a little bit. Do the same process again, loosen it, but this time now I want to back off that switch. So I'm going to go counterclockwise, just a skosh. And these adjustments are super small. This whole cam, this little tiny cam, one rotation equals the entire travel of the hoist, which in this case is 70 feet. So if I'm trying to make that 6-inch adjustment, that's a very, very small amount of movement on that cam. All right, now I'm going to come back in and let's see how I do. Well, that one looks pretty good. I'm going to call that good enough. So let's move on to the ultimate limit switch. For the ultimate, I once again unlock my locking screw, and I'm going to advance my blue screw until I hit it. And now I want to back off just a skosh. And the point here is that we want the ultimate limit to be close to the reverse initial limit, but we don't want to hit the ultimate limit first. We want to hit initial first and then ultimate. So we can't normally drive past the initial limit, hard to check the ultimate. But if I override the reverse initial, now I can go down into the ultimate. All right. And there we've stopped and we've got a good air gap. let's back it up. We'll override initial. And I've got to override ultimate just to move it all. And I'm going to override reverse on the way down so we can see if our ultimate limit does its job and protects us from crashing into the floor. All right, so that's pretty good. We've still got our air gap at the bottom of the frame. We haven't crashed into the floor. You could maybe mess around to get these a little bit more precise, but it's that same basic process. You set your cams, run the thing, tweak your cams. Set your cams, run the thing, tweak your cams, and check your settings. I'm not going to bore you with going through all of the explanation as we do the forward, but let's go ahead and do the forward limit switch since you always got to do that one too. Now, the only thing I will stop and bore you with is that here it's important to note that your cam's going to rotate counterclockwise or anti-clockwise. So my pink screw is my forward initial, and I'm going to run counterclockwise until I just hit it. Lock it back down, let's test. Looking good. And now ultimate. And here ultimate is purple screw. Again, moving that counterclockwise. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful. We've got our forward limit set, our forward ultimate, reverse limit, and reverse ultimate. This process is can be a little time consuming. There's no magic bullet. You kind of just got to do it, and you get faster at it over time. I hope this was helpful. Catch you next time.